So, how would I have done it? First, no Indominus Rex. I would want to stay as far away from that whole gene modification thing as possible, especially since the fourth installment, Jurassic Extinction, was proposed. Also, throughout the movies, the main antagonist dinosaur just seems to be getting bigger and bigger. First, it was a T Rex, then it was two T Rexes, then it was a Spinosaurus, and I would have liked to see that trend stopped. And having a dinosaur that kills for sport contradicts with some of the fundamental themes of Jurassic Park. Like, it's just nature, and we're really the evil ones for thinking that we could control it. Well, I guess you could say that the whole gene modification super dinosaur is them trying to control it, but whatever, it doesn't fit with my plot. Instead, there's just a bunch of dinosaurs with one goal: survive. And then this military program that wants to use dinosaurs as weapons, I find stupid. I mean, hard to believe that in a world of drones and missiles, someone would be like, hey, you know what we should do? We should just drop a dinosaur onto the battlefield. Instead of a military organization, that shadowy business would be replaced with a rival park. And yes, I know that's been done before, but call it an homage. So basically, the park is open, and this rival park sends in people to steal their embryos to make dinosaurs. No, I'm just kidding. So there are three people trying to break into the park, and these people are actually kind of hippies. These three tree huggers are actually the main characters, and the park is the bad guy. Think FIFA or Monsanto, using money to manipulate movements. So the park that has brought back dinosaurs refuses to divulge its secrets to cloning extinct species because they don't want that rival organization to make another park. So naturally, there's some protesters to this, and three members of the Rescue the Thylacine group, or something, decide to break into the park and steal the secrets to successful cloning, because I imagine it's complicated and there's a lot of little details. There's the hook in a nutshell. Let's go over the characters really quick. They really have to be interesting because apart from the dinosaurs, that's what made the original Jurassic Park amazing. Sure, the characters in Jurassic World were funny and moved the plot along, but they were pretty generic. The independent, calculated businesswoman who doesn't have enough time to spend with her nephews? I feel like I've seen that before. While some generic traits are good, I'm gonna try and fight that trend. First, there's a girl, let's call her emotional arc activist girl. She's passionate about the environment, clever, devoted, likes to play chess, caring but not fluffy, and in some ways naive. Her view on the park is that it's a crime against nature, and it was a really, really dumb idea. Then there's the paleontologist nerd. Let's call him Paleontologist Nerd. He's EAAG's younger brother and was convinced to come along because of his dinosaur expertise. He's more shy, apprehensive, smart, but not street smart, and quirky. His view on the park is that they shouldn't have made it, but now that they have, there's a responsibility to stay and take care of the animals. The third amigo, we'll call him Swagnado, is EAAG's boyfriend and supplies most of the comic relief, although all the characters are funny. He used to work at the Frog Rescue Place in Panama and is witty, sensible, capable, deeply cares about the natural world, and jovial. He thinks the park was a great idea and provides a lot of new opportunities for science. The park leader, we'll call him Mr. Evil, is the antagonist. He's like the anti-John Hammond. He's great with kids, enthusiastic, jovial, everyone gets along with him, young, successful, charming, and also very, very evil. Then there's the girl who works in the techie room with Mr. Evil. She has grown increasingly aware of all the dark things the park does and has decided to help the trio steal the secret formula. Finally, the most one-dimensional by far is the abusive velociraptor trainer. I'm just going to call him 1D for short. Keep in mind, most of these characteristics would be displayed with the script, because I'm not good enough to show it with the plot yet. Oh no, setting first. My island is the original island, but looks a little different from Jurassic World. So how they went about recolonizing the island was by burning all the forests around the outside and pushing the dinosaurs into the middle. Then there's a super concentrated dinosaur forest area that they threw a giant electric fence around and called the restricted zone. The park was built right on the edge of the island with a dock, the Mosasaurus enclosure being fenced off directly from the ocean, Main Street, the main center, restaurants, gift shops, and hotels. Then the Raptor Paddock, a series of enclosures, the Gyrosphere free roam area, aviary, huge lab on the other side of the island, and of course an exhibit explaining how they got the Mosasaurus. We open with a dark, intense, dramatic scene of some workers feeding a velociraptor. As they leave the enclosure building, the latch to the door doesn't quite close and slides open. The crowd moans at their stupidity. Boom! Freeze frame. A corny video instructor walks onto screen explaining the importance of latch safety. Boom! Freeze frame. Cut to someone like Jon Stewart talking about the video, saying something like, The most dangerous animals in the world and their security video is Don't Forget to Lock? Cut to a montage of press coverage for the park, both good and bad. New dino, worker deaths, sales, refusing to give up their super cloning secrets, etc. A sound montage of voices with building music. Another drunk worker died at Jurassic World today. We have to consider the moral aspect, etc., etc. It ends with a cool slow-mo shot of waving protest signs outside a ticket building. Cut to the Jurassic World logo. Next, we're introduced to the three main characters as tourists arriving on the island. Blah blah blah, witty dialogue, my character acts like this, etc. In their conversations, it's revealed that EAG and Swagnado are dating and that Geeky Guy was inspired to become a paleontologist by the original Jurassic Park. Also, some obligatory shots showing the wonder and majesty of the park. Meanwhile, the park leader, Mr. No Good Evil We Hate Him, is playing with some kids in the sandbox in the park's main center before being pulled away by some staff to talk to visiting investors. They're concerned about the negative press associated with the park for not giving out the secrets to cloning extinct species. He charms them next scene. So the trio is at a Velociraptor show that puts some emphasis on the doors that they come out through. But there's a snaffle as the Velociraptors almost pull a guy with the feeder pole into the enclosure. You can just imagine the speaker pausing as the whole crowd goes silent. The speaker stutters and then continues. After that, the trio is trying to book into their hotel. Unfortunately, there seems to be a problem with their room and they keep getting strangely nervous and heated. But it turns out to be nothing and they get into their rooms and immediately start unpacking their bags full of equipment to break into the park. Also, a nice detail would be if the towels were in the shape of origami dinosaurs. I think that would be cool. We're introduced to the whole tech crew when Mr. Evil shows up to ask about how the day went. Tech Girl is there to try and tell him that the Velociraptors have been acting a little strangely, but he doesn't notice or care. Mr. Evil enters his office and switches attitudes instantly, losing the inviting nature and becomes, scary. He proceeds to pressure 1D into covering up a new worker death at the hands of the Velociraptors. 'Cause he's evil. Almost as bad as a Gallimimus with teeth. I mean, what the heck, Lego? It's the middle of the night, and the trio sneaks out of their hotel and through some employee-only doors. Dun dun dun! There's a clever little heist bit as they get past security that I'm too lazy to come up with. Maybe they could cover a camera with some whipped cream. But of course, they just have to get to a situation where they're required to cross a dinosaur paddock. Using a key and combo, they enter. With their guns drawn and huddled in a circle, they edge across the door on the opposite side of the enclosure and come face to face with an Ionosaurus. And nothing happens. The Ionosaurus keeps an eye on them and keeps eating as they make their way to the door. So what's the point of this? Well, it shows that these are actually just animals they're dealing with and not some big Hollywood monster. Let's say you're trapped in a hippo enclosure. Sure, it could attack you, but it might also very well not. It's an animal. It's not definite what it will do. Also, the fact that they were this cautious with something that's just a herbivore demonstrates that these characters aren't stupid. And smart characters are just always better. From there, they get into the forest gyrosphere area where they're meeting up with Tech Girl. And she gives them a car, map, and points them in the right direction to where she'll shut down the power to the gate. Dum-to-dum, some more character building, everyone interacts with each other, and that's great. The trio might have a conversation that's like, "Thylacine is one thing, but this is unnatural," says EAG, and her brother responds, "They didn't choose to be here, for all they know this is their time." Meanwhile, Mr. Evil is making a strange call to a boatman about taking him off the island. The trio now arrives at the lab facility. There's a smaller one at the Innovation Center, but that one's just for show. The real one is on the opposite side of the island, past the restricted zone, to keep it as far away from the public as possible. As they sneak into it under the cover of darkness, they come across some startling discoveries. First, half of the station is outside the fence and half is inside, which is weird. Once inside, they find the place totally deserted, and it's a big place, bigger than the Innovation Center. It's not like it's wrecked or run down, it's just empty. Eggs and equipment are just left. They also discover they've been trying to make something called Protocol 7 work, but have been failing at it. Descending further, they find a gigantic warehouse with a fence system full of immature dinosaurs. The pens, barely large enough to fit them, and their squeals fill the air. Turns out that the glorious Jurassic World is creating dinosaurs in mass because their cloning process isn't as streamlined as Hammond's, and results in a lot of defects. All the surviving duds are just released into the restricted zone. I chose to go this route instead of genetic modification or military weapons because For one, I find this more believable since it's, actually happening. And this just adds another layer of relevance to the movie. The original Jurassic Park toyed with the themes of harnessing nature, and I like to think this builds on those themes by exploiting nature. This is not a glorious, wonderful, science-loving corporation. This is the opposite of John Hammond's dream, a corrupt, cruel park. And the main characters are built as animal-loving, science-pushing people, which basically embody all the good intentions about the original park. So they're pretty horrified by this, but don't really have time to react as the whole place suddenly sets on fire. There's some intense fire and burning rafter shots. The trio manages to save a few dinosaurs, but ultimately they have to leave, running into the forest, the restricted side, covered in soot to the sounds of dying dinosaurs. Meanwhile, the control room is in turmoil as they report the lab is now on fire. The whole room goes silent as the restricted stone fence beeps offline, because the circuit is now broken. Mr. Evil, feigning surprise, sends out a squad to reconnect the power. Of course, Techie Girl sees right through the director and knows he planned the fire. She is understandably pissed and gives Mr. Evil a public talking to, and he promptly fires her. I imagine a bird's eye view shot of the fire now developing into a big forest fire, and then some ground action of all the dinosaurs in the restricted zone running in the opposite direction, straight towards the park. A group of security guys led by 1D is readying their guns and all that jazz. There's some techie stuff to explain how they don't need to reconnect the loop to temporarily have power. Don't ask me how that would work. Then they go out and almost get it running when they are all attacked and killed by velociraptors. Because velociraptors ain't no one's pets. I would keep the heart monitor stuff in the control room because that really humanized the people that were dying. The last heartbeat goes dead just as they notice that the raptors have escaped. The now disheartened trio thankfully comes across the old Jurassic Park building. Blah blah blah, basically the same thing as with the kids, but there's some extra stuff. First, they find the secret to successful cloning. You might be thinking, why didn't Mr. Evil just send some military guys to go get this? The answer is plot holes are harder than they look to get rid of. Anyway, they're about to leave on that Jeep they just fixed up when they're rudely interrupted by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The same T-Rex, as a matter of fact. Dum-de-dum, some running away, and a car chase when paleontologist nerd is picked out of the car and killed. It's not something the audience should see coming. It should be a flash, and he's just no longer in the car. EAG screams and tries to turn the car around, but Swagnado pushes her away and grabs the wheel, saying, "There's nothing we can do." And there's the iconic mirror shot, now with the dinosaur successfully eating a human. Mr. Evil is now starting Phase 1, which is to bring everyone back to Main Street. It's a little late, though, because a stampede of dinosaurs crash through the electrified fence. Just imagine the coolest scene as a herd of dinosaurs in all shapes and sizes stampede through the tourist gyrospheres. A Diplodocus could whip one with its tail, shattering it instantly, and a group of Metricanthosauruses might take down another. A mammoth punctures a tusk straight through the glass and impales someone. Next, military arrives on the beach, and there's some anger towards Mr. Evil in the control room. People are starting to agree with Tech Girl. The big artillery machine gun helicopter heads out, but promptly backfires when it falls and crashes through the aviary, and the Quetzalcoatlus come pouring out. They, of course, head over and start attacking all the people on Main Street. Tech Girl is in the crowd and gives us a character to root for in the scene. Then Techie Girl storms up to the control room and demands that Mr. Evil enact Protocol 7. To our surprise, he immediately agrees. This will have been mentioned earlier, but as part of a safety requirement, Jurassic World genetically created a weakness in their dinosaurs to a human-devised disease. Protocol 7 is when they give the guards syringe bullets which kill the dinosaurs within moments. Evacuation/arming the military montage before the duo arrive through the smashed gate. Coincidentally, they are now in range and call Tech Girl, who is now alone in the tech room. She whispers to them what is going on, and they exclaim, "Protocol 7, it doesn't work, it doesn't affect them!" Pull focus from the phone to Mr. Evil in the background, holding a gun, pointed directly at her head. Conversation. Basically, the gist of it is he explains his evil plan. So, when he started the park, he knew one day it would be found out for the dinosaur cruelty and the fake safety insurance, which is why people were willing to invest in his park. If they found out, it would be shut down. Since the park was starting to lose money, he put his plan into action, which was to burn down the lab. Then he could live as a rich man with all the money he made and the insurance money. After explaining all this to her and subsequently the duo over speakerphone, Cliche, I know, but what are you going to do? He shoots Tech Girl in the head. So the military is heading into an army of dinosaurs with weapons that don't work, and there's only 2 people who can warn them. And then what? The climax, presumably, but how? This part really stumped me. I wrote down my brainstorming, though. Going back to high school English, the climax is when the main characters confront the antagonist and the conflict is most evident. But the whole point is that the dinosaurs aren't really the antagonist is human greed. So this makes me think that the main characters must meet the embodiment Mr. Evil, not like I planned where he pulls a dentist and gets eaten by the Mosasaurus. But still, Jurassic Park has a lot of human versus nature, and the climax has to involve dinosaurs. And the characters have to confront a truth, but if the truth is about meddling with nature, and the characters have already sort of known that, unless they just flip-flop beliefs. And I can tie in her brother's death so it wasn't just random, so then I can drive home the theme after the realization when confronting Mr. Evil. Oh, okay, I got it. The sister is sad. She is blinded by her sorrow and rage after her brother's death and points it directly at dinosaurs. Despite everything leading up to this moment showing how dinosaurs are nothing but animals, in this moment, she is bought into the vicious monster image and she wants them all to die. And it's pretty understandable. I mean, her brother was just eaten. So when they arrive at the military's barricade they set up on Main Street, she says, put live ammunition in, maybe even give some advice on how to corral them to their slaughter. Swagnado is there to act as the one who sees reason, to point out that she's not really acting like herself. Because as an audience member, you might be thinking, live ammunition, that's a great idea, that's what I would do. The general dude tests her theory by shooting a Psittacosaurus still in its enclosure, and when nothing happens, orders everyone on Main Street to switch to live ammunition. Then he tells Swagnado and EAG to go get a lift on one of their boats. Meanwhile, the captain that Mr. Evil has called earlier to pick him up is having his own intense scene. It's foggy, and he thinks he sees something in the water. That something proceeds to bump the boat more and more aggressively until the whole thing flips and he's eaten by a Mosasaurus. Mr. Evil, realizing that his boat's not coming, decides to make his way back to the main docks. Next, we pan up from the torn hook of where the Mosasaurus net used to attach to show the military barricade on Main Street. The first dinosaur to turn the corner onto Main Street is a Brachiosaurus, and what follows is a poignant and emotional scene as the creature is showered in a barrage of bullets. The music is ramping up, and finally a shot of it falling down, its head smacking into the pavement, completely dead. Meanwhile, a truck rolls up to take EAG and Swagnado to the docks. When they open the door, they're shocked to find Mr. Evil already sitting there, having just been picked up. So it's super tense, but Swagnado just whispers that they'll wait till the mainland to call the police. Gracious as ever, he offers them a seat, and then proceeds to shove them back into the road when a velociraptor suddenly appears out of nowhere and kills the driver. There's some intense action as they fend off the raptors around the truck. Eventually, Swagnado is trying to haul EAG onto the roof when Mr. Evil, now in the driver's seat, screeches away in the opposite direction of the docks. Raptors are running alongside the truck, but Mr. Evil manages to swerve and run one of them over. From the roof, EAG can see another raptor, nudging its dead mate, pitifully trying to get her to stand up, before letting out an anguished wail. Now, up till this point, the raptors have been the exception to my rule of making the animals as realistic as possible. They seem bloodthirsty and hunt down the man who abused them. So it's supposed to come as a jarring moment when the raptors, that no one ever messes with, has such clear sorrow. So jarring that the audience is right with EAG when she realizes what her brother was talking about. As unnatural and Frankenstein as they are, these are animals, intelligent animals that feel the same hunger and remorse as any other. So this gives her the new goal of saving the dinosaurs from the death trap that is Main Street. The Jeep, being driven by the now injured Mr. Evil, screeches around the corner and like a moron smashes through the defense line. EAG and Swagnado are flung and hit the concrete hard as the Jeep rolls onto its side and scrapes the length of Main Street. Mr. Evil climbs out of the wreckage and limps into the communication center, having seen that the velociraptors in the confusion have darted through the hole and are coming straight for him. EAG, seemingly like a moron, runs in after him. Inside, it's dark, and all that you can see is the blue light from displays. Imagine the kind of dark area at the aquarium with the jellyfish. That's kind of what it's like. We cut between the two of them wandering through the halls, and every second you think a raptor is going to jump out, but, it turns out to just be a hologram. Meanwhile, outside, Swagnado is being dragged by some army guys trying to regroup when all of a sudden there's just this big stomp. And around the corner steps an Albertosaurus. From inside, EAG can just see this wall of dinosaur moving past the window, and Swaginato is all like, don't shoot, it's eating, and the Albertosaurus just starts munching on the Brachiosaurus. EAG has found her way into the tech room and sees on one of the cameras Mr. Evil in the lobby with a Velociraptor heading his way. Thinking fast, she manages to turn on the lights. Mr. Evil sees the Velociraptor creeping up on him and dives into the bathroom and straight into the stall. But unfortunately for EAG, the lights also reveal a Velociraptor previously hidden in the shadows and about to pounce. Back outside, some moron fires a bullet at the Albertosaurus and it roars, turns around, and starts running straight at them. EAG is now jumping over desks and sliding under railings, trying to stay as far away from the raptor as possible, and manages to lock herself in Mr. Evil's office. Meanwhile, the Albertosaurus grows closer. EAG, really developing some badass cred, whips out her phone and calls Techie Girl. The ringing phone coming from the dead body distracts the Velociraptor, and EAG runs out, jumps the bar, slams on the keyboard, and just makes it to the stairwell. The Albertosaurus is just about to smash into them, but stops when all the enclosure doors lining Main Street suddenly swing open. And what walks out? Nothing but a Tyrannosaurus Rex, here to claim its title as Dinosaur King. The two just start going at it, and Swagnato's like, we have to leave, the barricade was a failure, if you stay now your men will just die, and the general is like, true, let's get out of here. In the bathroom, there is a menacing shot of the Velociraptor's feet walking past the stalls before stopping and clicking its claw right in front of Mr. Evil's stall. It ever so slightly nudges the stall door. EAG is rushing down the stairwell when she sees another Velociraptor a few flights down, and the one behind her has gotten through the door. Trapped, she does the badass thing and jumps down the middle of the stairwell, grabbing onto one of the rails, and her body slams into the side and falls a few more feet. In the bathroom, the Velociraptor is bashing down the door when we hear a gunshot. EAG, having picked up the gun Mr. Evil dropped outside the door, is now standing in the bathroom, shooting the ceiling. The Velociraptor, familiar with those black things that they hold and make loud noises, backs off for a second, allowing Mr. Evil to dart out and run away with EAG. They almost make it to the door when they're surrounded by 3 Velociraptors. Thankfully, the scriptwriter is on their side because just at that moment, the fighting T-Rex and Albertosaurus smash through the Innovation Center wall. All hell breaks loose, and Mr. Evil/EAG manage to get outside, where Swagnato is waiting with a jeep to leave with the retreating army. Now, Mr. Evil might have attempted one last evil act if Swagnato hadn't tasered him unconscious as soon as he got in the vehicle. Okay, flash forward a little to when they're safe with the surviving tourists and Mr. Evil is taken into custody. The final scene is of EAG and Swagnato in a hotel room looking at the secret to successful cloning and trying to decide what to do with it. This movie explores the themes of scientific pursuit and what its limits should be. Is there a point when something is just too dangerous or too easily corruptible to morally continue investigating it? And now the main characters must confront that decision. Do they destroy it to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands, or use it to try and repair some of the damage done by humanity? The end. It ends here to leave it open to audience interpretation, to leave them questioning what is the moral thing to do. What would you do? Is this even their decision to make? Is it right to clone something? Are some things too risky to pursue? And what if it's used to clone humans? These are complicated questions which are alarmingly starting to need answers. The original Jurassic Park basically was saying, you can't control nature or play God. But Jurassic World, in its blockbuster sort of way, is saying, we can, we do, but should we? And this is left ultimately with the audience. And keeps the possibility open for a sequel.